My senior year in high school was the first time I had a chance to public speak, and it was at a an event that we were having, and it was at my high school, and we were having an overnight event where I was the MC, and I felt confident going into the event, but a few hours before it started, I started to get nervous, and I thought of all these reasons as to why I was wasting my time participating at this event. In hindsight, I recognized that that's what Stephen Pressfield, the author of The Art of War, would call resistance. But nonetheless, I came up with all these excuses and rationalizations as to why I didn't want to be there. And lo and behold, I got a call from a family member that was going to be the perfect excuse for me to get out of emceeing this event. But for some reason, I knew that I had to stick to my word. And looking back at it, I'm so glad that I did. It really worked out well for me to begin a path of being a student of communications and learning how to speak in front of people and what that means to creating a positive environment. And it was just like one thing after another that was an air quote coincidence, because during the final section of this event, I had a woman come up to me, and for some reason I had made these assumptions about this woman who I felt like she was a soccer mom that really didn't have any value to my career path moving forward. And she was asking me questions, and I was really offish, and I was really short with her. I was, looking back at it, really arrogant and rude and disrespectful. And she kept asking me questions, She would ask me what year in high school was I in, and I'd tell her that I was a senior, and she asked me what I wanted to do, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that time, but I knew that my entrepreneurship teacher had suggested that I look into marketing. And so I kind of, just to have something to say, I threw out that I was going to go to Youngstown State for marketing. And right after I said that, she said, well, my husband and I own a marketing agency, and we would love to have you intern over the summer when you're at YSU. And I couldn't believe it. It was like manna falling from the heavens, of just an opportunity that fell into my lap out of sheer luck. And I remember two things. I remember thinking, what would have happened if I let my excuses get in the way from keeping my word, and what that would have done to the opportunity. And then secondly, about the assumptions that I made about this person that I never met and that I never knew. I made all these judgments before having a conversation with her, and lo and behold, she was someone that was that held keys to a potential gate to my future as a marketer. So I'm very grateful and humbled at that experience. Fast forward a few years later, I was working as an insurance agent, and we had an office in downtown Youngstown. And I remember we were relocating offices. We were moving from our first office in downtown to our second office. And I remember I had a suit on that day, and I piled all the stuff up from the first office, and I piled it onto this cart, and I was carting it down the street. And as I was crossing this intersection, this homeless man looked at me and started laughing and said, "Well, it looks like someone just got fired." And when he said that, I was immediately enraged, and I had so much anger that I wanted to like tell him off and tell him that we were actually just moving across the street. And right when I went to say something, there was this gust of wind that hit the cart and just blew all these papers everywhere, and I had to go chase them down because the light in the intersection went green. And I'm happy that happened. I'm happy that gave me a chance to step away from this person and realize that he wasn't really worth arguing about. But what I later thought of was this guy who made this assumption about me, thinking that I was getting fired, when in fact it was the complete opposite. We weren't moving out, but we were moving to another office at a higher floor on another building. So it was just interesting again to see another assumption being made that was actually the opposite in reality. And then finally, fast forward years later, I was at a company event in Chicago, and it seemed as if 95% of this event was people from one company that was hosting it. And I remember talking to this guy who had this long beard. You could see that he had a tattoo sleeve underneath his dress shirt, and he was like wearing these big thick frame glasses. And I walked up to him and I said, "Oh, hi, my name's Lewis. How long have you been at XYZ company?" And he, as soon as I said that, he looked kind of shocked, and he said, "Oh, I'm not an employee." He said, "I'm a founder of a tech company in Charlotte." And if you don't know anything about tech entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurs in general, calling them an employee or referring to them as an employee is like a big slap in the face to their efforts, and especially a founder. So it was. I was completely embarrassed, and I think he noticed it, and he was generous enough to put me at ease, and he gave me a lot of great tips, and we were able to connect afterwards, after the fact, and it was a great learning experience from him. But again, another example of me making an assumption of an outward appearance without having all the data. So for me, the common theme throughout these examples that I've shared is the idea of what's on the outside isn't necessarily even the surface. You're not even scratching the surface of what's inside and what's actual truth in reality of how things are working. So for me, it's just a testament to being very critical of my assumptions. I understand we can't get away from making assumptions, because if we had to analyze every bit of data that the universe is throwing our way, we wouldn't have enough time. Our minds are pattern recognizing machines, and that is an efficiency that gives us the ability to not think about picking up the glass of water, or not thinking about every thing that's happening on the road while we're driving. If our brains needed to do that, they would be overwhelmed, and we just don't have enough bandwidth to compute everything. So an evolutionary tool has been the ability to break things down into patterns and to try to automate as much as possible when it comes to decision making and seeing the world. So I understand that we can't get away from assumptions, but these examples that I've come across in my life has made me realize that I have to do a bit more due diligence before acting on these assumptions or making judgments as a result. And the way that I found that has been helpful to do this is just by asking more questions, using the patterns that I recognize and the assumptions that are bubbling up to the surface as a guiding light to what to ask. So being more interested in that woman when I was in high school. What is she about? What is she into? Where is she from? Turning around and asking that homeless guy, what happened to him? Did he get fired? And what was that like? Probing. And then with this entrepreneur, just not making any assumptions at all. Saying, hey, what brings you here? How did you get here? Where are you from? Where did you work? How did you get your start in your career path? All of those things are general enough to spark the conversation in the right way, and away from the predetermined assumptions that we often make in our own mind. And in this time of information overload, I think it goes beyond just dealing with people. I think also this goes to the information that you're seeing online or on the news. You want to jump to conclusions, you want to make assumptions, but always have in the back of your mind, and this is something that I'm trying to practice, is to ask more questions than offer answers. Because there's just so much information to sift through that it all possibly can't be right, and usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. So when it comes to looking at things from the outside, remember that that's just the tip of the iceberg, and to go deeper, go further, and start chipping away towards the inside, to getting closer to the truth as possible. With that, thank you for listening. Have a great week.